Very good. It's 1:02, so we will begin our meeting for today. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. Obviously, it was less than ideal conditions today as far as traveling compared to yesterday where the mayor was grilling outside and we were sitting in our lawn chairs. So it's just, but anyway, that's how it goes. So thank everybody for joining us. We have a few items on the agenda. It's the EDIC meeting for February 27th. And the agenda item number 1 is to approve the tax exempt review committee meetings of 1/23/2024. And we have those in front of us. I don't know if there's any changes or corrections, but if there aren't, we will accept a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2 is the ownership change for the Woodrow Wilson Apartments and commercial space. Jim Gilmore to get us started off. Jim.
Okay, this was a pilot and I think a Renaissance zone was approved probably a little over 5 years ago. And with the pilot program, we actually have to have city commission approve the new owner. And so what we're proposing here is that the property tax exemption will not change. It's simply a different ownership structure. Originally, Kilbourne Group had an entity that owned Woodrow. That was then transferred to Greystone Capital. The city approved that change. And under this change, Greystone Capital would continue to be a owner of 68.5%, and they're selling a 31.5% interest as a tenant in common to another member. Again, there's really no change. I don't know if they're able to get on a line if Gray is available from Greystone Capital. I don't know. We don't have him connected, but it's a pretty simple change, and we've approved some of these before where there's simply an ownership change over the course of that property tax exemption.
So Jim, like you said, it doesn't change the terms of the original agreement. It's just like on a liquor license, you're just changing the name of the person that's participating. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I don't know if there's any other questions or it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if you don't mind me asking, Jim, do you know how much time is left to run on that? And I apologize for putting you on the spot, but if you don't know, that's okay.
No,
But just out of curiosity.
It would run through 2037. This particular pilot, though, is it starts out at 100%, and it may still be at that, and then they gradually start to pay more taxes as the years go on. So it's so there's 13 years left.
That's great. Great. Any other questions? Otherwise, we will accept a motion.
A motion to approve?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3, Border States pilot application for a distribution center. Jim Gilmore, once again, to start us off.
This will show you a map of where the location is. It's up northwest of 19th Avenue North. You can see the Amazon Center is up here in the horse park, the airport. So it's a very large site. They're proposing a 350,000 square foot warehouse distribution center. The request is for a 10-year 100% exemption. That's longer than we typically do, but given the size of the project and the fact that we know they're looking at other cities, this site is more expensive, not because of the land, but just the way it's orientated. You've got concrete roads all the way around it. And so the special assessments on this, I think, are about $5 a square foot. And so that makes it challenging for this site to be competitive with other sites that they've looked at in the Twin Cities, St. Cloud, and Sioux Falls. I'll have Ryan been working with the company. He can talk about the number of jobs and the amount of investment that Border States would be making at this site.
Thanks, Jim. Ryan Osheim with the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation. You stole a lot of my thunder, Jim, so I'll try to be brief. But yeah, the scope of this project is significant. It represents, I would say, also not just the investment in this project, but future growth opportunities as well. 46 million is the estimate on the project size. That includes the building and equipment and working capital. 350,000 square feet, as Jim mentioned. 60 new FTEs by year 2. And 4.5 million in payroll is what that represents. So a significant economic contributor and input to our region, in addition to the direct tax revenue that will be generated, in the years following the pilot. Jim mentioned it too, this project, one of the reasons for the length of the request and the nature of the request is the competitive nature of this project, and also some of the extraordinary costs related to the land. So we do know that this project is in competition. There's other communities, which I'm sure our representatives from border states will talk about shortly, the other communities that they're talking to and looking at for this investment. This facility too, they'll mention to you is kind of the first of its kind in the nation for border states. This company's had tremendous growth over the last several decades, and is looking at making those investments in their future growth here. I just wanted to mention too, I don't know, James or Jim, you might need to fact check me on the numbers, but I just looked quickly at the tax on the land. So this isn't an official number, but when I use the GIS, it looks like about $481 in taxable income on that land. So I think with some of these costs, the extraordinary costs with specials, we could see this land take a little while to develop. So we would maybe be looking at 5 years where someone looked at acquiring this, and then they'd be requesting a 5-year pilot, which in essence would end up being the equivalent of a 10-year pilot anyway. So I just wanted to kind of put that in a little bit of perspective too. So with that, I'll maybe welcome up our representatives from border states, James Sipe, who's the Executive Vice President of Supply Chain, and Tony Cerati, who is the VP of Operations and Supply Chain at Border States. They'll talk a little bit about the project and a little bit about kind of the state of Border States Electric as well.
Good afternoon. James Sipe, Executive Vice President of Supply Chain for Border States. Just want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about this project. We are happy that Fargo is one of the finalists in this consideration. We've got a long history and partnership with the city, the county, and the state. Just as a point of reference, Border States is a $4 billion organization, national organization. Within North Dakota, we have 9 different locations, about 600 employees in the state of North Dakota, and then finally about $400 million worth of revenues for the state. We're unique in that we're an employee-owned company, so that creates a fantastic opportunity for our employee owners, so they are therefore our shareholders also. And this is a unique business model that we're very proud of. We have over 3,000 employee owners. So over the last 10 years, Border States has experienced a tremendous amount of growth, doubling in size. And in doing so, we've reached an opportunity where we can start to bring forward some more sophisticated opportunities in how we run our business. And so we're implementing distribution centers. So this will be the first distribution center we'll implement nationwide, one of many. And ultimately, that allows us to create some scalability around certain aspects of what we do, but also still delivering customization in that last mile. So we're very excited about this opportunity. We're looking forward to learning more about what opportunities exist for us to be able to pick this as our final site. I'm going to introduce Tony Cerati. He's going to talk a little bit more specifically about the project.
Thanks, James. Good afternoon. Tony Cerati. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Border States. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about this project and opportunity we have here in the city of Fargo. As a 20-year Border States employee owner, James mentioned our growth. We've grown from $400 million in top-line revenue during that period to over $4 billion. And really, we have strong aspirational growth over the next decade, even as far as 3Xing our revenue by 2030. So we have high aspirational growth, and to do that, we know we have to scale the business differently. And we're looking at our supply chain in a different way than we did previously. So as James mentioned, we're introducing a strategy around central distribution. Currently, we have 120 plus Border States operating facilities that operate very independently. This CDC, which will be the first of many, will be really a consolidation redistribution center to start with, really to optimize our inbound logistics and really leverage our branch locations like in Fargo on 25th Street to be our final mile delivery center for customers. So we're starting in this project in what we're calling the Upper Midwest for many reasons. One, we're an Upper Midwest company. Our roots are here. We know we have a lot to learn in this project. So we're starting here close to home base. As James mentioned, and Ryan as well, we've explored multiple different communities over the past 18 months in this project, really narrowing down to a couple sites here between Fargo and one other. Ultimately, our hope is to be in Fargo, but it has to make financial sense for the business as well. Ryan mentioned we anticipate this being a 350,000 square foot facility. We're also giving ourselves, with the land that Jim's displaying, the opportunity to expand an additional 200,000 plus square feet at a later date if needed. We anticipate that 350,000 square foot footprint will take us through our 10-year growth projections in the facility. Ryan mentioned about 60 estimated employees in this facility. We anticipate 75% of those individuals being professional warehouse labor, but full-time labor. The additional 25% being management, GM, supervisors, maintenance type of roles in the facility. All full-time roles will have the opportunity to be part of our border states ESOP and be employee owners of the company as well and grow with the company. So that's our project in a nutshell, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, Mayor.
I was just talking to John Cosgrove here, and we need some electric boxes for the garage at the airport. So if you guys could help us out with that, then I'd be in favor of this.
We'll work it out, Mayor.
Any other questions?
It is holding things.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, strategically, this looks fantastic. Do you guys use for shipping? Will you be using the airport at all? I mean, can you talk a little bit about that and just the impact over there as well?
Yeah, so I would say just full transparency. We're still working on the logistics model.
Okay.
I may have mentioned this, or may not have mentioned it, but we anticipate that this facility will be really focused on consolidation, redistribution, and it's going to support 28 existing border states branch locations in the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, all the way out to Montana as well. So really, that's kind of our footprint. With that, we anticipate a lot of this to be full truckload logistics, so over-the-road type of trucking. But as we see this eventually shifting into more customer fulfillment long-term, and we absolutely could see air freight as being part of the solution.
Go ahead.
Could you just talk through the timeline really quickly? I know that there's been, I mean, when would you anticipate the doors are getting open? When are you going to start hiring up?
Yeah, so as far as our operational date, we're looking at late 2025, so next year into early 2026 is really the timeline we're on based on construction. It all goes to plan. So I would say anticipating that early 2026 is where we're at today.
Any other questions? Otherwise, it's obviously the projected payroll is the positions are between $20 and $28, 58 positions. And then right now, obviously, we all know your corporate headquarters is along the interstate of I-94 and 29, correct? And so this is more of a distribution center, your corporate headquarters, that's two separate entities, correct? Very good.
correct.
Any other questions? Otherwise, if we're ready, go ahead, Mayor.
Well, I know we're in competition on this distribution center, so very pleased that you came to us. And Jim, thanks for working on a plan that would work. The specials are high in that industrial site area, and then we are struggling sometimes with somebody to come in. So thank you for strongly considering staying in Fargo and setting up a distribution center. Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So I just wanted to tell you, so I knew your dad, John, and he's a great guy.
Thank you.
And I think of him often, especially when I'm driving by your businesses that you used to have. And I really enjoyed his laugh. He was a one of a kind. So I miss him and I think about him all the time.
Thanks, Dave.
You
Appreciate it.
bet. Very good. Moving on to number 4, changes in the tax increment financing policy. Jim.
Yeah, right now, we've, I think, had a lot of good successful examples of renewal plans and TIF districts that have redeveloped some areas in town. One of the factors we have now, or one of our things in our process, is that we really don't do those TIF notes in developer agreements until they're ready to start. What I've seen here, and I think there may be some other areas in town where you have structures that are blighted, they're not dangerous where we could kind of go in and knock them over with our ordinances, but they're blighted and the developers really don't want to start because if they tear down the buildings now, then they may not qualify for renewal incentives in the future, and then it may not be feasible to do the redevelopment. And so what I'm suggesting is I draft for our consideration at our next meeting is to revise our policy to create a way where we could actually go into a development agreement, now with some of these property owners and say, let's document the costs and we'll actually give you a TIF revenue note. And then you might have maybe 2 years, 3 years to start the project. But they would know then at the start that they would get reimbursed once they did development in the future. We'd probably limit the amount of insistence to actually the cost of demolition and what the assessor has it valued at the building. And then they could go ahead and demolish it. They would only get the TIF revenue if they actually built something in the future. So if 10 years goes by or whatever term we put on there and they don't develop anything, they don't really get financial benefit until they actually invest in the property. If they are going to get some longer term incentive, we could do a but-for test. We do but-for tests now, but you can't really do one because you don't know what they're going to build, you don't know the interest rate, you don't know the market, and so you can't really do that part of the equation. So I think we should probably limit this to like a 5-year TIF so that it's relatively short-term, and knowing that they could be eligible for, say, Renaissance zone incentives or maybe some other incentive in the future, but you would act on that only when they're ready to start building. One of the advantages for the city is, when you look at these properties, certainly it's kind of a blight on the edge of the downtown, and really for the property owners, they still have some costs to maintain and some bare minimum maintenance on these. You've got problems of people breaking in and trying to live there. There's high potential for fires. I mean, the city experienced that with Mid-America Steel. We had that vacant, it burned up, and then it could be a real nuisance for the neighborhood. So if we have developers who are willing to work with us to tear these down now, to kind of clear the sites, and then when development would happen would depend on, the market conditions, cost of money, cost of construction. And so I anticipate this could happen in a few years. I don't think it's going to be, we're going to have to wait even 10 years for something to happen. But so I see some advantages for the city that we kind of clear out some potential nuisances. The developers would then not have to, maintain the property and, worry about people breaking into it. And so I think it could be kind of a win for the developers and also a benefit for the city if we were to have a policy that encouraged sort of this early clear out of some of these properties that will eventually get redeveloped, just that we don't know exactly when or what. It'd still be subject to whatever zoning would be in place at the time. So just want to get your thoughts on if you feel we should pull something together like this for your consideration at the next meeting. If you have some thoughts on the maximum term or a maximum time that they should get started on a project, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Well, just right now, Jim, if they did that and took it down, they'd get no credit, right? On the TIF and pilot, we don't pay them back down for demolition.
We would pay them, but only in the future when they build from the proceeds of the new development. So
Okay.
they would get the money back if they built something. If they didn't build something, then they wouldn't recover that. So there's no real financial risk for the city at all.
So what's the advantage for the developers that they can tear it down and then figure out if interest rates are better to build or?
Yeah, the advantage for the developer is that they, certainly lower their costs to, it doesn't cost much to maintain these, but they don't have to deal with, break-ins and things like that. I think these property owners are probably, if they, see their other properties they have in town, this is not something they'd be proud of, having to, hold this property. They'd like to get it cleared out, but their concern is that if they clear it out now, then they may forego, redevelopment incentives because it won't qualify as being blighted, so.
And then as far as our growth plan, this actually goes with our growth plan is infill. This is a great idea for infill for what we have there.
Yeah,
And as what Nicole has, is this would really be one of those qualifiers that we're supposed to incentivize, right?
yeah, I mean, it'd be a great infill project. Right now, the city's having to maintain the streets around these blocks. And there's, not that much tax revenue coming from these blocks. So if we can get development here, one, we don't have to build more roads on the edge. Secondly, it's infill and it's close to the downtown. We need more housing. I think both of these sites would likely be developed as housing. And so there's a lot of benefits for the city to see these sites developed sooner rather than later.
Go ahead if you're ready.
Thanks, Jim. Just to be clear, so the city would say, yes, go ahead, demolish this property or do what you need to do in order to prepare for redevelopment. Then the cost of that would be rolled into whatever future TIF revenues that are available. Is that the idea?
Yes, we would give them a promissory note saying, we will pay you back. Let's say it's $1 million to
Yep.
tear these down, but you only get paid back from the new development that happens on this site. So no development, no payback. With development, then you would get to pay back.
And right now, as it stands, that's not allowable within this policy?
Not really within the current policy, not at all.
Okay.
Any other questions? But otherwise, we've had this issue around NDSU. This happened previously where the houses were sitting there. Basically, it has a negative impact. And then on top of that, it's a public safety issue. We're getting police calls and just the general, the atmosphere when there's abandoned houses. And so this is a way. And so basically, it's going to come back to us with the wording, and then we'll review it again at that point. So that's kind of the plan. If isn't that what you're proposing, Jim?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And if you have any other thoughts, get in touch with me prior to the next meeting, and then I'll have something written and out to you in advance of the meeting.
That sounds great. If that's okay with everyone, if there's any other comments or questions. Otherwise, that was just informational. So you don't really need us to take action, do you? Or do you need a motion?
I don't need a motion.
Okay, but it will be coming back to us, and then we'll review it once we see what the wording is. But I do think it's an issue, and we're kind of fighting against ourselves by leaving these buildings sitting there kind of going downhill. And so the perception is we're the ones doing it, and it would just look better to get them taken care of.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I think unless anybody has any other comments, thank everybody. Go ahead, Jim.
Just probably one other item. Jessica Erbling had resigned, or she resigned from this committee. Just too many commitments with Gate City. A lot of her meetings were at the same time. But so we do have an opening on this committee. If someone is interested, they can apply online, or you can maybe reach out to someone who would be good for this committee. Just want to let you know we have that opening, and then the mayor would review those along with Commissioner Pepcorn and make a recommendation to City Commission.
And we do want to thank Jessica. She was a member for quite a long time and did a great job. And we totally understand. It's just, when you have so many things going on, it takes a lot of time. So we want to thank her, and we'll make sure we do something to recognize, because along with Jim Bouis, she's been on it for a long time, so she will be missed. Okay, other than that, thank everybody for coming. It's 1:26 and we are adjourned. Have a good afternoon.